I am the CEO. About a year ago, I was running a small video game tournament in the small company I owned. The wait list had a full list of 16 people, and it was fine until one person ruined it for all. Entitled parent, take a guess. Entitled child, yay me, Lamousa. We were starting up the games when a dad ran into the store with his son. Entitled parent, we're here for the tournament. Me, oh sorry, but the list is full. Entitled parent, well then, make some room. Me, I can't do the. Entitled parent, listen, I can get you fired with the push of a button. Me, how? Entitled parent, I have been friends with the CEO of this company for a long time. Me, then call him. I watch him make a fake phone call then hang up. Entitled parent, he says you're fired. Me, that's funny, considering I am the CEO. Entitled parent's look of shock still makes me laugh to this day. Entitled parents try to pimp me out to an entitled child, and try to ruin my life when I don't let them. This all happened around 10 years ago and takes place over the course of the absolute worst months of my life. I had just turned 18 at the time, and thanks to my mom's gambling addiction we lost the house that I had lived in my entire life. Almost right after we lost the house, a family friend offered to let us stay at her house with her family, since her and her husband had a few extra rooms. We moved into their very large house, and at first things were great. The family consisted of the entitled parents and their entitled child who was the same age as me. All of them were understanding and nice at first, offering to let me and my mom stay for as long as it would take for us to get back on our feet. Entitled mother even got me my first job working as a volunteer at a bingo hall. It was all under the table kind of money, but I didn't care since it was money in my pocket that my mom couldn't/wouldn't provide me. Entitled parents had been family friends for a very long time, and are absolutely enamored with the idea of me and entitled child getting together, and have been ever since we were little. They constantly made comments like, "Look at the beautiful couple, you two look so great together," or "We'll give you lovebirds some privacy," whenever we were in the same place together. Despite me stating several times that I didn't like him in that way, they were determined to try to get us to work, like some kind of arranged marriage. I think that really fed into entitled child's ego, because about a month into my stay there is when the first incident happened. We were walking down the hall when he smacks my ass from out of nowhere. I really freaked out and went off on him, yelling, cursing, and giving him a few shoves. Our parents came upstairs to see what all the yelling was about and we end up getting separated. I tell my mom what happened, and she responds by telling me it wasn't a big deal and to not rock the boat while we were living there. Entitled child eventually gives some half-assed apology to me at dinner, and his dad made some joke about how he's relieved that he's finally taking an interest in girls, since they were starting to think he was gay. Things proceeded to escalate from there. Any chance entitled child got he would make lewd comments or find some way to grope me. Every time I went to his parents it was always hand waved away as boys will be boys, or he probably didn't mean it that way, that he was a really sweet guy deep down and I should get to know him better. On one occasion Ed told me that I should be flattered. My mom was content to not do anything, enjoying the freeloading that got to feed her addiction too much, and telling me to stop playing hard to get. One day entitled child puts a hand down my shirt as I'm sitting on the couch, and I started yelling at him about how I'm sick of him doing stuff like this and to never do it again. But he gave me the most terrifying glare and told me, "Shut up. You live in my house." After that I was so terrified of being alone with him that I would stay after school for as long as I could until I was asked to leave, and if I ever had to go back to the house for any reason, I would just hide in my room with the door locked and wouldn't come out until I knew other people were around, since I didn't know if one day he was just going to force himself on me. Fast forward a few months and I'm told, not asked, that I'm going with entitled child as his date to his senior prom, which is in a week. Entitled parents are super excited and tell me that we'll have the whole house to ourselves that night after we come back from the dance. I very quickly shut that down and tell them that I'm not going because of how entitled child treats me, and entitled parents spend the rest of the day doing everything they can to compel me. First they try telling me money isn't an issue, how they'll pay for my dress and ticket. When that doesn't work they try to guilt trip me, telling me how they ask me for so little, and how this is the least I can do, and how much entitled child would love it. Finally, my mom eventually hears about it after she comes home from the casino, and she's pissed. She tells me how I need to go, how it's such a big opportunity for the both of us, and how I need to tell the entitled parents that I changed my mind. I refuse, and the day after entitled child's prom is over, entitled parents sit me and my mom down for a talk. They start implementing new rules, about how they now expect us to pitch in for all the amenities, how we're expected to buy our own food, and how they're going to start charging us for rent. Before all this, they were very adamant about us not paying for anything. wanting us to save money to get back on our feet. Even without my mom spending half or all of her checks at the casino, there was no way for us to afford what they were asking, and they subsequently gave us a month to find our own place and move out. We ended up moving out to live in a sketchy neighborhood with some guy my mom was dating, whom she'd met at the casino. My mom blamed me for the entire thing, saying I blew a golden opportunity for both of us. How I basically threw away a great future that was all laid out for me because I wouldn't dance and put out. That cut me pretty deeply, and I still get angry thinking about it to this day. Few months later I graduated, but my mom didn't show up to the ceremony. I come back to the house and all my stuff is sitting on the curb next to the trash, and had been thoroughly picked through. I found out my key doesn't work anymore, and nobody is picking up their phone. End up waiting till about 3 in the morning for them to come back from the casino, and my mom tells me in so many words that I'm my own now. Nothing I say changes her mind, and I eventually pack what little of my stuff is left into my car. I spent the next month or two couch surfing or sleeping in my car, while trying to pick up as many days as I could at work. Eventually I managed to save up enough to move into my first apartment with a roommate. I haven't spoken to my mom or the entitled parents since then, but recently my mom left me a voicemail asking if we could talk, since she didn't like the way we left things. Since then, she's been blowing up my phone every day. I don't plan on ever taking her call. Entitled Mom wants a newer model. This just happened a few hours ago. I'm gonna make this a short one since I'm on my phone and on lunch. Me again from the animal shelter, which is a magnet for the crazy and over-entitled of the world. Enter 60-year-old entitled grandma. She comes into our shelter with this tiny little poodle that is skin and bones, missing hair and blind and seemingly deaf. The dog looks like it died months ago and didn't know it. Well, EG brings this dog in and says it's a stray she found. We ask her the basics. Do you live in this county? Is one of the biggest questions we ask. See, what some people don't know is that every county in a state has its own county animal shelter or animal control facility. Any stray animal found must be brought to that county shelter, usually within 48 hours of finding the animal. It is illegal to take a stray animal from one county and surrender it to an animal shelter in a different county that you don't live in. Now, that being said, EG doesn't live in this county. However, she claims to have found this dog running down the road in our county. Okay, it happens. We take the dog in and I get called to do its medical exam. I make sure the dogs and cats and whatever else we get has their proper shots and medication so they don't get sick while here, or if they are sick, so we can at least start getting them healthy. This requires a lot of wrestling with big animals that can kill me if they timed it just right, who don't want to take their pill or get a shot. So I take the little poodle into the back and first thing I do is scan any animal coming in for a microchip. Chip comes up instantly. I research the chip and sure enough it's from the next county over that entitled grandma lives in. Registered to that county's animal control. This is a red flag for me. This tells me it's her dog. However, I follow through and contact the next county's animal control. They pull up the chip number and give me the owner's name, address, and phone number. It's not entitled grandma. Okay, I think to myself, well, I've been wrong before. I call the owner on the chip. The owner isn't entitled grandma, but it turns out the owner is entitled grandma's daughter. Me: hello, is this entitled grandma's daughter? EGD: yes, who is this? Me: yeah, I'm me from county animal shelter. Are you missing a small elderly poodle? EGD: no, I got a poodle for my mother EG as a present back in 2016. Did it get lost? Me: no, your mother brought it in and told us it was a stray she found. She falsified information on a government form, and abandoned her animal. These are pretty serious issues. She needs to come get her dog now. EGD: I understand, and I will call her and make sure she comes and gets her dog back. About a half hour goes by and my desk phone goes off. It's EGD's number. I think, okay, this is them telling me they are coming back. Nope. Me: county animal shelter, this is me speaking. Entitled grandma's daughter, sounding very frustrated. Yes, this is entitled grandma's daughter calling back. EG isn't coming back for the dog. She says she doesn't want it anymore because she thinks it's old and ugly. She demanded I get her a teacup chihuahua instead. Me: well, that's between you and her, but either you or her need to come get this dog, as it's an actual crime to surrender your animal to a shelter in a county you don't live in, let alone the animal abandonment charges and putting down false information on a government form. Entitled grandma's daughter: I understand, but I work in other county and can't make it in time to get the dog. Me: then your mother needs to be an adult and come get her dog. She's got till the end of the day, otherwise we will be filing a police report. Entitled grandma's daughter: well, she's old. She shouldn't have to deal with this kind of stress. She should have considered that before she lied to us and abandoned her animal. Have you even seen this dog? It's skin and bones. You are aware that animal cruelty is a felony in this state, right? Entitled Grandma's daughter. Fine, I'll get the darn dog. We close at posted hours. She hangs up. I go to lunch. I doubt I will see her or the mother, but I'm true to my word. If they don't get here by the end of the day, they're gonna be dealing with the police instead of us. Edit. Quick update. With 3 minutes left to go till we close and no entitled Grandma's daughter or EG in sight, this will now become a police matter. I gave them plenty of time to get here, now they can deal with felony charges. Edit 2. No word from entitled Grandma's daughter or EG either. I doubt they'll show up again at this point. The poodle is doing great though. She is getting the food and medication she needs and already seems more energetic. The plus side is in shelters, the smaller dogs always tend to get adopted first, so once she is medically cleared for adoption, she will most likely get a home that day. How I started a revolution in my entitled family. All I wanted was my sisters. I am currently in custody of my 2 little sisters, Amy who is 17 and Liza who is 8, not their real names for obvious reasons. I am a 29 male and we live in Australia. I am Potato as that's what Liza calls me, and this is basically the story of how my family felt they were entitled to both of my sisters' bodies and I wouldn't stand for that. I would like to warn anyone who has faced abuse in the past as parts of their story may trigger some people, and to anyone who has faced abuse in the past, I do feel deeply sorry for you. The main part of the story takes place about a year ago. I'd moved out 6 years ago at the time and moved to another state for work and study. I was honestly really slack with keeping contact with my family, which is probably why this went on so long. When I do think back to the time before I moved out, I didn't treat Amy the best, and if I hadn't moved out and had so little contact with my family, I may have turned out just as entitled and as much of a horrible person. I came back to visit for a grandparent's birthday. After spending so long away, I spent the morning catching up with aunts, uncles, cousins, my parents of course, and Liza. Now this was actually the first time I'd really realized the oddities of my family. Perhaps it was the change in environment, a few of my roommates had little sisters and whatnot after all, but it was the first time I'd noticed how quiet the little girls of my family were. I guess I'd always just thought of Amy as shy and quiet, but my little cousins were so much the same, polite, shy, quiet and obedient. Though at the time I brushed this off. After a few hours, I realized that Amy was nowhere to be seen all day. The party was at my parents' house, so this confused me, and I slipped inside to see if she was cooped up in her room like a lot of 16-year-olds would be, talking to friends or doing assessments. What I found is a memory that will haunt me forever. My oldest uncle on my father's side, laying over my sister who was quite clearly in a lot of pain and struggling not to cry as he pinned her beneath him. I completely lost it, as any brother would, shouting at him to get off her and out of her room. I scared the hell out of both of them, but in that moment, I was honestly ready to kill my uncle. Amy was pretty messed up in the head when I tried consoling her. She was covered in scars, had a rash that I later found out was an allergic reaction. She was allergic to strawberries. She didn't speak and looked at me as if she expected for me to hurt her too. Her room was dimly lit, the blinds taped closed to her wall. All the things she'd had when I left were gone, leaving her bedroom feeling cold and empty, and to add insult to injury, she was a month pregnant. When I demanded an explanation from my parents, they, paraphrasing, said that it was my uncle's right, and my father simply pointed out one of my 11-year-old cousins sitting quietly with her parents and told me to have fun. I stormed off back to Amy's room, quietly packed her a bag of necessities and managed to sneak her out of the house and into my car before doing the same with Liza. Part of me wanted to get all my cousins out too, but my main focus was of Amy right now, who sat trembling in the back of my car. I drove them both to the closest police station to report what was happening. I'll skip most the details of the legal battle that ensued, but my family did not take kindly to being outed for what they were doing. It was a tradition that spanned generations, and there shouldn't be anything wrong with tradition. Amy and Liza were put into temporary foster care. Amy was wrecked. To her, everyone could and would hurt her, and I got reports every few hours that she was having a panic attack. 3 of my uncles went to jail for a very long time. I got a fair bit of money out of a range of family members, full custody of both Amy and Liza. No enforced visitation to their parents. My parents had to pay for any therapy costs, medication and medical needs for both of them. My family was torn in two by this, many of my aunts leaving their husbands with their children after finally having the courage to follow me. Uncles who had married into the family took their wives, who had also been abused, and cut off ties. I still keep in contact with these members of my family and I'm grateful for their support and glad that my cousins are safer now. Even some of the older guys who had been brought up thinking it was okay to treat women that way took themselves into counseling once they realized just how messed up it was, and I've had more than one instance where they admitted to hurting Amy and apologized, which I've accepted as these cousins did their best to take their siblings or other cousins out of harmful environments. Now I do believe some part of the ruling protected the younger men of the family provided they see some form of mental health professional, as they grew up thinking that this was all normal so they didn't end up in jail, but did end up on some list of possible sex offenders, not entirely sure there. No one is sure who fathered Amy's child but she had her pregnancy terminated as we were told her physical and mental health would not cope with carrying a baby she ultimately would unlikely care for. She did consent at the time and it was brought up by her psychologist once she was doing better and she confirmed that she would have no love for the baby due to the circumstances which she fell pregnant. For 6 years, Amy had been physically, sexually, mentally and emotionally abused in every way conceivable. This mostly came from my father's 4 brothers and brother-in-law who married into the family. My parents both stood by and let this happen, offering no support for Amy. During the case my uncles argued it was their birthright being born into their family and it was simply Amy's rite of passage before she was married off to one of my uncle's mates at 18. They used her allergy as a form of torture and manipulation, wanting her to be silent and obedient. They would press strawberries against her skin any time she said a word and force her to eat them when she stepped too far out of line. A lot of my aunts from my father's side admitted to enduring this treatment too, although most of them were lucky and didn't have allergies to exploit. I honestly can't even begin to explain everything that was wrong with Amy because of their behavior. Liza, for the most part, was okay. She needed a little therapy as she was being groomed into compliance and taught that what she would experience was normal, but Amy had completely shut down. It took 2 months before I could even get her speaking. She trusts me now and we often sit down, and I let her talk and open up about whatever she feels comfortable to. Her stories often have me struggling to hold back tears while I comfort her. I did get Amy a service dog a few months ago, tailored towards the emotional support she needs on a regular basis. Lickety Split honestly is the goodest of good doggos. She knows exactly when she's needed and is a massive help when it comes to calming Amy's anxiety, especially in public. We've had more than one encounter with unrelated entitled parents thinking they or their kid deserves her dog more than her. Let me know if you want these stories published too because I've seen people like to read about service dog related incidents, but anyone who does think that can honestly fight me. No one deserves her dog more than her. On one occasion one of my aunts, her husband went to jail, tried taking Lickety Split because their money paid for her. I told her if she ever comes near my property again, I would call the police as there was a restraining order against her towards both my sisters. Later she came back and tried to poison Lickety Split with tainted meat but one of my lovely neighbors caught her and chased her off. Police were called. She is now in jail too after having to pay a fine and some money to me because at this point, I'm pretty well acquainted in the legal system and sued her. My family still tried to get my sisters out of my care, reporting me for everything from animal abuse to drug trafficking. They planted drugs in an identical stuffed toy to Amy's comfort toy, left it in the yard, but Amy would never do that, so I knew something was up immediately. Home security systems work wonders. I've actually become pretty chummy with the local police officers who have to inspect their claims, but they know I'd never do anything to endanger my custody over the girls. They mean the world to me. I will admit though, I have done things to hurt me bond with them, yelling when stressed and throwing things from time to time, but I'm not perfect and Amy has told me that although these moments do scare her, she doesn't feel endangered being near me when they happen. I also spoil them a little when they do happen. Now the reason this ended on Ida is because a few weeks ago my mother contacted me saying she wanted to talk. I was hesitant, but agreed and we met up in the next town over. No way I could be followed home. My mother explained how she was in the process of divorcing my father and she wanted to have a relationship with me and my sisters, with emphasis on mending her bond with Amy, who had not called her mum in years. She explained how she was pressured into the marriage after she gotten pregnant with me and never wanted that life for her daughters. I flat out told her no, something several members of my family disagreed with, as she could have done literally anything to support Amy emotionally with what was happened, done anything to make her feel better or more secure with what was happening to her, but instead she was shunned and isolated except for when she was needed to cook, clean or provide some sort of service to the family, even going as far as to berate her whenever she did try to confide in my mum that she was in pain or scared. Amy was well past her breaking point when I took her and had even planned on killing herself less than a week after my visit. My mother argued that she had the same right as the other members of my family who had left and had contact with my sisters, but I told her it was because they were doing it to protect their children and themselves. They didn't wait a year after losing custody to try and fight for them, and I really don't even need to give a reason. I have custody and she does not. Members of Am I the A-hole convinced me that when Amy is in a better place mentally and Liza is older, I bring it up with them, leave the decision in their hands. I've been told Amy will be a dependent well after she turns 18, her mind just doesn't function properly, so there is no risk of her mother getting into contact behind my back, even when she's an adult. And while Amy does have a phone and a computer, she doesn't have any social media, as she doesn't want any chance of her family trying to contact her, as they've threatened her with many forms of torture in the past. This story doesn't have a slam dunk ending. I have my sisters and they're in a safe environment where they'll get to grow up as kids. Amy is getting the help she needs and is slowly making her way out of tower she built to protect herself in the only way she could, but she knows there isn't a rush to come out. I'll work with her at the pace she sets. She's still discovering her own interests, but quite like just reading a book with a form of fruity tea. She also has a small collection of stuffed animals, mostly Build-A-Bear, that she adores and takes one with her everywhere. She's sensitive to texture, so the feeling is a comfort for her, and once a week we sit down to try to find older bears she likes. We only have 3 Build-A-Bears on her wish list, and honestly, I've loved helping Amy discover herself. She lost a lot of her ability to think and feel for herself during this time, and watching her find her favorite book genre or her favorite types of music is a great feeling. Knowing how far she's come, and I live for the days she actually manages a smile. I'd be willing to answer most questions, so if you want to know anything, just ask, as I want to bring awareness that these things are still happening to other kids, but obviously some things I'd rather keep to myself for the girls' sake. Too long, didn't read. Entitled family feel they have a right to do what they want with my little sister's bodies. After I get custody, mother believes she still has a right to see them. Edit. First off, thanks for the awards, it means a lot, and thank you for everyone offering your kind words and support. It's honestly really difficult this past year, and at times I really do struggle, but have to stay strong having my 2 little girls depend on me so much, and the support everyone has shown is truly the best. Some extra notes. Amy was pulled out of school at 10, a few months after I left home. She was kept isolated in her room and had very little meaningful contact. Also, I'm not going to share a photo of Lickety Split, as she is a very recognizable dog, and not everyone who has contact with Amy and her dog know the full story, so I'd rather not draw on links between this story and her real day-to-day life, as she struggles with it enough. Edit 2. Wow, this blew up overnight. Thank you for all the awards, and sorry if I don't get back to some people. Also, I'm meeting back up with my mother later today to talk to her about the possibility of seeing the girls in the future, once Amy is a lot more stable and Liza is old enough to understand what I saved her from, and the decision will be entirely theirs. Edit 3. Answering the commonly asked questions to save myself repeating. Yes, I was groomed to, but much differently. I was taught I could treat the woman in my family how I wanted, but I was never really a violent person and sexually driven. I was a jerk, and although I have anger issues at times, taking it out on other people is not something I ever saw effective. My focuses were more on my studying. Some of the other men in my family were the same and were never really abusive. Unfortunately, it never really clicked in my head that if I was being taught that, what were they teaching my sisters behind my back? I blame myself fully because of how long Amy suffered, and do my best to make amends for it by showing her love no one else cared to do. I am in therapy too. I work closely with my Amy's therapist too, so don't worry about my mental well-being. I'm looking after me too. And for those mentioning BS because I didn't go into detail about all the legal detail, I would go days on just a few hours of sleep during the whole legal battle, because I would be looking into every detail I could to know how to help my sisters. Most of it is a messy blur. I also didn't feel many people would care to listen, and I had to chop loads out of my story and still had people saying it was too long. The story is unbelievable, I get that. I wouldn't want to believe it either. You don't need to say it though, just downvote and move along. I don't care what you choose to believe. Amy was pulled out under the premise that she was being homeschooled. I'm not sure how it worked from there. I was never homeschooled, and I didn't homeschool the girls. I'm not sure how my family got around DOCs or anything like that, I just know it worked for 6 years. Crazy entitled Aunt and the Italian Restaurant. This happened almost 40 years ago. I'm posting it as a thanks for reading the other stories. This one is more funny and entitled rather than infuriating and entitled. My immediate family was, for the most part, perfectly normal and boring. We were not prone to outbursts and tantrums. It was very calm and quiet. Everyone got along and we were pretty happy with our boredom. I tell you that so you understand that I had absolutely no experience at all with people prone to screaming fits. You should also know that I suffer from a case of terminal morbid curiosity. I also don't give a crap. Never did. Never saw the fun in it. This happened when we were visiting for Great Auntie's funeral. I was 12. Entitled Auntie insisted that we all go out to dinner at her favorite Italian restaurant. It was just the best, she said so, and she was never wrong. The gimmick here was a little flag of Italy on the table. When you wanted more dinner rolls, you raised the flag. This is important. Flag up, you get rolls. Flag down, no rolls. Remember that. The 6 of us are seated, they take our drink order and bring the bread basket. The cast has a new member, poor uncle, for my poor long-suffering uncle who will one day be made a saint for being married to entitled auntie for over 20 years. Some of you commented in my first post that he was an enabler. He wasn't. He was a victim as well. He couldn't leave her without leaving Emily. It started with the drink order. Entitled auntie, we will have 5 sweet teas. Dad, I'll have a Coke. Mom, I'll have a Coke. Me, tea, no sugar, this is a mortal sin in the South. Entitled auntie, don't be silly, you can't have sweet tea without sugar. Me, I don't like sugar. Entitled auntie, that's stupid. Bring her sweet tea. Waitress, winked at me, yes, ma'am. Poor uncle, I think I'd like a Coke as well. Emily, I'd like a Coke. Entitled auntie, we drink Pepsi, not Coke. We are having sweet tea. The waitress brought us our requested drinks. Entitled aunt was growing agitated. Entitled aunt likes to control everything and everyone. So she told us what to order for dinner. I'm not going to get into an ethical debate here, but I refused to eat veal. She demanded we all have the veal. I refused. I knew this would set her off, but, oh well. I'm not eating veal. My parents, after I had explained to them years earlier why I would not eat veal, refused to eat it as well. Did I mention I get my I don't give a crap quality from my parents? Well, they didn't give a crap either. They were perfectly capable of ordering whatever the hell they wanted. So they did. I had lasagna. It was good. My mother's was better. Once we ordered what we wanted, it emboldened poor uncle and he stepped out of line and ordered something else as well. Entitled aunt was not having it. Entitled aunt, you are getting the veal. Poor uncle: no, I feel like something else tonight. Entitled aunt, the veal is the best. Poor uncle: I still want something else. Entitled aunt, you won't like it. Poor uncle: I'm sure I will. Entitled aunt, you don't know what you are talking about. Poor uncle: I know what I like. Entitled aunt: well, you can't have it. Poor uncle: yes, I can. Entitled aunt: I said no. Poor uncle: well, I'm ordering it. Entitled aunt: you always get the veal. Poor uncle: because it's your favorite and you make me. I don't even like Italian food. Entitled aunt: yes you do, it's your favorite. Poor uncle: I want the lasagna. Entitled aunt: damn it, poor uncle, order what I tell you to order. Poor uncle: no. Lasagna. Emily: I'll have the lasagna too. Entitled aunt: you can't have that, you are allergic. Emily: no, I'm not. Entitled aunt: I'm your mother, I know what you can and can't eat. Entitled aunt, to the waitress: bring her the veal. The whole time this is going on I am looking from one to the other like watching a tennis match. Back and forth, with the pitch of her voice getting more and more shrill with each sentence. I was fairly certain that when we left bats would have been summoned. I'm just watching them and eating a dinner roll. The food arrives and everyone got what they wanted, even Emily, much to the fury of entitled aunt. Then it happens. Poor uncle raises the flag. Entitled aunt puts it down. Poor uncle puts it back up. Entitled aunt takes it back down. Up and down, up and down. I see the bread guy hovering at the edge of the table, waiting. Flag goes up and he rushes in to drop off the new basket before it can go back down. Entitled aunt grabs the basket and throws it at the kid that delivered it. To save time in typing, every time entitled aunt speaks, the flag goes down. The rest of the time it goes up. Entitled aunt: you don't need any more bread. Poor uncle: but I want more. Entitled aunt: I said no. Poor uncle: I'm an adult, I can have more bread if I want. Entitled aunt: no you can't. Poor uncle: why, just tell me why I can have more bread. Entitled aunt: because I said so. You weren't listening to me. Poor uncle: I'm hungry and want more bread. Entitled aunt: you wouldn't be if you had ordered the veal. Poor uncle: yes I would. I always am, but you never let me have more bread. Tonight I get more. Me, I want some more bread too. Entitled aunt: no, you have had enough. Me, no, I really think I want more. Entitled aunt: well you are wrong. Me, you seem upset. Entitled aunt: that's because you people aren't listening to me. Me, yes we are. We just don't care. We want more bread. Dad, to me while trying not to laugh at how absurd this is, you aren't helping. Me, I think you want more bread too. At this point the whole damn place is watching our table and the battle over the flag. I'm fairly sure there were people taking bets to see who would win. In the middle of the confusion, a nice lady sitting at another table nearest Emily, tapped her and slipped their fresh bread basket to her. Emily took a roll and slipped it to me. I took one and slipped it to my father, then it went to my mother who, after taking a roll for herself, slipped one onto poor uncle's plate. Entitled Aunt saw it and grabbed for it. Poor uncle was faster. He shoved the whole thing into his mouth at once. It was a big roll. The waitress approached the table to check to see if we needed anything. Xanax was unfortunately not on the menu, and Entitled Aunt demanded she bring the check. Me, I want dessert. Chocolate cake. Poor uncle, sounds great. I'll have some. Emily, me too. Dad, I'll have apple pie. Mom, I'll have cheesecake. Bring cheesecake for Entitled Aunt. She loves cheesecake. Entitled Aunt, no. We are not having dessert. We are getting the check and leaving. Now. Dad, no, we aren't. Entitled Aunt, well I'm leaving. You can all walk home. Dad, I drove. It's our car. Entitled Aunt, I know, give me the keys. Dad? Nope. Entitled Aunt, you have to give me the keys. I live here. You are just visiting. Dad, yes, I'm just visiting. With my family. In our car. Entitled Aunt, it's my state. Dad, I don't care. It's my car and you can't have it. You're a terrible driver anyway. Entitled Aunt, no I'm not. Dad, you drive the wrong way on the freeway. Entitled Aunt, no I don't. It's the other cars going the wrong way. Dad, you get lost in your own neighborhood. Entitled Aunt, not always. Dad, you are not driving my car. Entitled Aunt, yes I am. Dad, no you aren't. That, ladies and gentlemen, continued while we ate dessert, paid the check my father was buying, as we walked to the car, and for the entire trip back to their house. My father drove. We dropped them off and went back to our hotel room. Dad, has your sister always been this crazy? Mom, no, it started when she was about 3. Dad, what happened? Mom, she started speaking in complete sentences.